Dragon Ball Z is such an iconic series from the 90s. For many, it was the anime to introduce them to anime. It was a follow-up to Dragon Ball which followed the adventures of a young boy with a monkey tail, Goku, who has inhuman strength and abilities most can only dream of. He and the friends he makes along the way search for the mysterious Dragon Balls that's said to grant you a single wish when all 7 are gathered together. As the sequel, Dragon Ball Z has its characters already established. Although he's all grown up now, the adventures for Goku and his friends, the Z Fighters, are only just beginning. More and more villains attack either them or the Earth, and as the most powerful people on the planet, they task themselves with the duty to protect it. Despite being on TV during my childhood, that was surprisingly not my introduction to the series as a noughties kid. The manga, used to borrow them from the library, and since then, I've been in complete awe. In primary school, I used to draw Akira Toriyama's drawings straight out of the page. I adored every bit of it. How quick and easy it was to read, the fact that you read it from right to left, the drawing style, the fight scenes, what's not to like? For me, it's still the ultimate way to experience the story, for it doesn't take what feels like a couple of episodes for someone to power up and turn Super Saiyan. The Budokai Tenkaichi series for me is a great middle ground between the two in the sense that you feel like you're in the anime yourself with the fight scenes, but it's also fast paced enough for it to be like a chapter in the manga you're reading. But before we get into all that, let's talk about what was happening prior to the release of the first of the initial trilogy. The Budokai series had just released its third and final game in 2004. It had adopted a 2D fighting game style akin to the likes of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat and Tekken. As you can imagine, that appealed to a more hardcore audience, as fighting games, while appealing at first to all sorts of players, can be difficult to get into. As I was getting at before, the Budokai Tenkaichi series for me is a great middle ground between the two in the sense that you feel like you're in the anime yourself with the fight scenes, but it's also fast paced enough for it to be like you're flicking through the pages of the manga you're reading. The game was called Budokai Tenkaichi outside of Japan, likely due to the brand recognition of the Budokai series, but the two have no relation to each other than the fact that they're both Dragon Ball Z games. The series was published by 2 different companies around the world, Bandai Namco in Europe and Japan, while America and Australia had it published by Atari. Relating to that, the third Budokai Tenkaichi installment is also the final game Atari published before they had their Dragon Ball Z publishing rights revoked and handed over entirely to Bandai Namco. The intros of each of the games of the Budokai Tenkaichi series are so iconic to me. Very nostalgia inducing. Although the graphics aren't great in the first one and I'm still baffled by the art style, the music truly gets me amped up, and this is probably the one I most prefer the combat choreography of. Frieza walking with his chest puffed out like he just got laid, and Goku and Vegeta bobbing their heads to each other like a couple of bobbleheads was kinda weird though. When it comes to the gameplay itself, the combat encompasses a 3D arena fighting game style, which to me seems to make it more accessible to those who, like me, struggle to break through the difficulty barrier of entry to the regular 2D fighting games. While I have played the Budokai games and enjoyed them for what they were, no Dragon Ball Z game has ever made me feel as powerful and badass as the Budokai Tenkaichi series has. The button inputs for combos aren't as complex as most other fighting games, so that makes it easier to get the hang of for many more casual fans. Which is ideal because the series has existed in 2 other mediums prior to the video game market. Therefore, it's ideal to appeal to that audience as well as, if not instead of, the hardcore fighting game player, especially following the completion of the Budokai series, which had already appealed to that crowd. In order to transform, or if you want to perform a special move including a variety of ki blasts, all you have to do is build up sufficient ki by charging. I'd find a lot of the time at the beginning of a fight versus my brother, we both charge up to the max, so we both had a special move at the ready when needed to be drawn upon. Especially because charging underwater can become a bit of an annoyance. To be fair, it makes sense logically. Similar to characters training under intense gravity, the pressure underwater can cause ki charging to be slowed down significantly. The intensity of when both characters, be it you versus a friend or you versus the CPU, blast off powerful ki blasts against one another simultaneously is unmatched. Both of you desperately twisting the analog stick so you can come out on top is a great change of pace, but also makes the gloating when you come out on top all the more special. And honestly, I'm just flabbergasted as to how my controller survived the constant abuse it got from these games. Throughout the entire series, you have Z items that can be used to make your fighters even more powerful by boosting their key attacks, strength, health, speed, and a lot more. Not only that, you can fuse items, a very smart use of Dragon Ball terminology, to unlock special items that can include the unlocking of characters that cannot be unlocked by other means. This truly gives a purpose to every aspect of the series and makes everything feels valuable, fun, and rewarding to engage with. Another staple throughout the series is Dragon Balls being able to be found in and around the arenas, hidden in destructible buildings or collected as rewards for completing tournaments. So in between punching, grabbing, throwing, and blasting your way past foes, be sure to keep an eye out. When all 7 of the Dragon Balls are brought together, you can make one of several wishes that can include the unlocking of a new character, which I love. It's great that they thought of another method of unlocking characters rather than solely going through the story. It keeps it fresh and motivates the player to keep playing the game in different ways. Budokai Tenkaichi 2, in my opinion, had the weakest intro of the 3. But that doesn't mean it was bad. Instead of Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and Piccolo fighting the main trio of villains of Dragon Ball Z, Frieza, Cell, and Buu, we have Goku, Vegeta, and future Trunks facing off against the same enemies but with some additions later on. AB comes into the fold along with Android 13 and Turles, although we don't actually see them fight, so it's just rendered pointless. The roster size becomes incrementally larger with each installment. With Budokai Tenkaichi 2, it went from a measly 90 playable characters and forms with 10 battle arenas to a more respectable 120 playable characters and forms with 16 battle arenas. The new characters added were Android 13, Kui, Garlic Jr., Grandpa Gohan, Hirundagan, Meticulously, Pan, Picon, Salza, Slug, Supreme Kai, Sign Shenron, Tapion, Turles, Oob, Yajirobe, and Zangia. While some of these aren't the most fun to play as and aren't the most crucial of characters to the DBZ storyline, it can be fun to play as a weaker character to gloat as to how much better than your friend you are. This installment is also where they stepped up in the gameplay department. Everything just flows better. The movement and the melee combat is significantly improved upon. Many times the original is the first to try something new, but the sequel is the developer's opportunity to build upon it, recognize its flaws and turn them into positives. Tenkaichi 2 does that in spades. The third Budokai Tenkaichi game had a splendid intro as well. Great music, different villains, and they actually fight this time. Broly, Janemba, and Buu are wreaking havoc as Gogeta, Gohan, and Gotenks fight them in a well choreographed fight scene that includes an image showcasing the damage they do on Earth, replicating the damage sometimes done to the battle arena after a special move. This is the one I played the most. Hours upon hours of gameplay, split screen local multiplayer with my brother, with my friend. It truly is the greatest of the original trilogy and in my opinion, the greatest fighting game of all time. Everything just aligned to make it the ultimate Dragon Ball Z experience. After countless battles, I found 5 fighters to make up my team to face anyone who dared stand in my way to glory. Kid Buu, Teen Gohan Super Saiyan 2, Omega Shenron, Gogeta Super Saiyan 4 and Super Vegeta. No messing about. I'd have so much fun fighting with these characters. As a child, my brother and I would be rolling on the floor laughing, thinking Omega Shenron sounded like he was saying mother as opposed to Dragon Thunder. That's all that ever enters my head whenever he performs that maneuver. There's just so much that adds to Budokai Tenkaichi 3 being the ultimate nostalgia trip for me. While many thought that the roster almost doubling in size from the initial game diluted the gameplay by way of lack of variety in actual playing style, I never actually found that. It was the most of any fighting game roster to date at the time of the release of the game. A whopping 161 characters and forms with 23 battle arenas is truly a lot to boast about. The new characters include Android 8, Aral, Bobody, Devilman, Dr. Wheelo, Fasha, Future Gohan, General Blue, Kid Chi-Chi, King Cold, King Vegeta, Nail, Nam, Nova Shenron, Spopovich, and Tambourine. Gameplay was at its maximum quality in this installment, and they also added the ability for characters to interact with each other mid-battle. Not just by commentating over the fight, which they do as well, but if you press the R3 button at certain points in the fight, it triggers an in-battle cinematic which truly adds to the story in particular. especially given that it's entirely optional. Fusing discs is a new aspect that was also added in Budokai Tenkaichi 3. It allows for you to insert your Budokai Tenkaichi and Budokai Tenkaichi 2 discs to unlock the Ultimate Battle and Ultimate Battle Z game modes respectively. Both of these game modes allow you to challenge fighters to see where you rank amongst the best. These are game modes that were in each of those games and encourages you to purchase the entire trilogy so that you can have the ultimate Budokai Tenkaichi experience once you fuse them with your Budokai Tenkaichi 3 save. Battle Replay is another new feature that allows you to save battles to your memory card for if you wish to relive the experience of some of your closest, most tense and fun fights you've had versus the computer or someone else. However, navigating through these menus to get to these game modes though is fairly time consuming. Remember, prior to the PS5, loading times were a big deal. Fortunately, Bandai found a way to mitigate that issue, because at the time they had a patent for loading screens. Since 1995, only they were able to allow players to engage in a minigame via a loading screen. While the others had a single loading screen in each game, in Budokai Tenkaichi 3, the series finally makes full use of this license. There was a variety of minigames on loading screens to help keep them fresh and avoid constant repetition, which would have rendered the pattern pointless. All of the games of this series, as you would expect, repeatedly retell the story of Dragon Ball Z. Some adding sagas that the others didn't have, but none really strayed from that formula. Not that I'd want them to. I don't watch the anime anymore or read the manga. Yes, that includes Super. So these games are a great way to re-experience the joy and heartbreak Toriyama's stories provided me with all those years ago, despite the fact it's mostly told through text format and narration. Having multiple ways of unlocking the characters from these stories, not just by progressing through the campaign and each of the sagas, keeps it fresh and fun. This series has had criticism with regards to oversaturation of the roster with characters from Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT, leading to none of the characters feeling unique enough, but the fact that there are several different classes of characters in the roster, including artificial humans who don't show up on the radar and are unable to charge their ki, larger characters who don't flinch from the melee attacks of smaller characters, Scouter who can lock onto an enemy from anywhere, Mr. Satan / Hercule who can get absolutely nobody to flinch from his melee attacks, and finally Majin Buu, all of which his forms are able to regenerate health at a slow rate over time. And the fact that most of the characters has a specialized moveset at least makes them feel unique to me. In terms of gameplay, it's quite silly that in the story sometimes you have to win a fight so that the character you were fighting as loses in the cinematic. Doesn't make sense and kind of breaks the illusion of being a Z fighter. If the case was that the character the player is controlling had to lose, they should have done more of the last 60 seconds until help arrives malarkey like Yajirobe and Master Roshi versus Meticulously, as opposed to Piccolo versus the exact same enemy. While being able to transform mid-battle is great, it's especially cool that fusions can only happen if you had both characters in your party, as it adds a special tactical aspect to the combat. You lose two, you gain a more powerful one. A great aspect throughout the Budokai Tenkaichi series is that the characters take damage visually, as in you can actually see their cuts, bruises and the damage to the clothing that takes place as the fight progresses. There's nothing quite like having the wind grasp from your fingertips thanks to a grueling beam battle after catching a whiff of the sweet stench of victory, having already beat your enemy to a pulp. And I can't wait to taste the nectar of that devastation yet again in Sparking Zero. Sparking is what Budokai Tenkaichi was called in Japan. Therefore, calling the new installment Sparking Zero does make it feel like a reboot of sorts. They went for that name instead of Budokai Tenkaichi 4, similar to Yakuza going to Like a Dragon. Now, why would they do that? They certainly won't be changing the main character like Yakuza did. I believe it's a way of easing the anguish old-time players of the series will have in regards to DLC and season passes. The roster of Sparking Zero has a lot to strive for, although now that they have super characters and transformations, I'm positive that they can live up to it. However, with DLCs and season passes having become rampant since Budokai Tenkaichi 3, I wonder how much they'll actually allow as natural unlocks throughout the game, as opposed to unlocking via payments. Having a lot of that, or any of that for that matter, would be catastrophic, because in my opinion, that is one of the main components that this series is known and loved for. and split screen would do well to still be in there despite the fact that online battles will be at the forefront these days. Thanks so much for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, comment your thoughts and subscribe for more retrospectives and video essays like this. See ya!